I'm a German psychoanalyst in training. I love studying psychodynamic theory. I enjoy reading psychoanalytic books, but I know that it can be very tough to navigate the massive amount of books and essays and articles that is out there. It's very difficult to figure out where to start, what to read, in what order. So if I had to start all over, I would put together 3 books as my foundational psychoanalytic personal curriculum. And in this video, I want to show you what those 3 books are, what they're about, and why I recommend them. I think if you want to get a good starting point in studying psychodynamics, you need to understand the tradition itself. You need to understand or have some knowledge about the theory that is behind it. And you should have some basic knowledge about what treatment looks like, what psychodynamic thinking shows up like in treatment. So this is what those 3 books will be about. And we will start with the first book. I have only read this book this year, but it has already become probably the best book I've read this year. And it is called, I'm going to show you, Revolution in Mind by George Macari. It's still pretty new when it comes to psychodynamic literature. It's from 2008. You can see, it's quite a big book. It has, I think, 625 pages-ish, but the last 125 pages are just additional notes and everything. So probably it's like 500 pages of pure literature that you read. And this is just fantastic. This book is absolutely brilliant. I don't know how Macari did it, because the amount of reading and studying and getting all the resources in order to put them together in such a beautiful way. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. Macari covers the development of psychoanalysis as a tradition, starting from Freud, and we're talking the Freud in Paris, the French Freud, if you will, up to the Second World War. And Macari really shows that psychoanalysis as a tradition and the psychoanalytic community as people that try to come up with this new method to help cure mental illness, it was really it was an alive thing. I think many times when today at institutes, or if we read, superficially, then we get this idea that it's so neat and, there are those clear schools and the theory is, it feels very much put together, but it was messy and it was rich and it was human. And it really shows how much the psychoanalytic community expanded and then contracted, and it broke apart and it put itself back together. And I think it just gives you much more appreciation for the humans that created these traditions, because they were humans after all. Freud was not perfect. Wilhelm Reich was definitely not perfect. Jung was not perfect. Alfred Adler was not perfect. Everyone who contributed to this massive body of knowledge, to this insanely ambitious attempt at understanding the human mind, was a human. And if you read their stories, at least for me, it gave me a whole new appreciation of the field. It made me feel much more connected to it. It put my own imposter syndrome and my own feeling that I have no idea what I'm doing at ease, because the continuous struggle for more clarity is right there. It's written into the history of this tradition. And yes, I just can't recommend this book more highly. Also, I think it's quite affordable. On Amazon, the Kindle version is like maybe $10 or something. Prices, of course, change, but it's very affordable and it reads like a charm. Storytelling is amazing. And especially if you're still looking, to find out who you would like to study, what psychoanalysis is all about, this grounding in theory and really understanding how this movement came to be, at least until the Second World War, I would love to see Macari continue this on to 2000 or something. I would be incredibly curious to read more about psychoanalytic history from George Macari. And then once, you're kind of fired up, you have an idea of the tradition that psychoanalysis came to be and how that happened and the different influences, this is a good point to start getting a broad scope of the land when it comes to theory. And the book I recommend there is called Freud and Beyond by Stephen Mitchell and Margaret Black. I only have it on my Kindle, but I'm going to show you the cover picture here. I'm going to try to put it on screen. This is a book from 1996. It has 336 pages. And Mitchell, the main author, unfortunately passed away prematurely in 2000. But up until then, he was one of the leading voices of relational psychoanalysis. He wrote another book with, I think, Jay Greenberg, was it? Where they really looked at object relations theory, understanding that and contextualizing that. And Freud and Beyond, his book, is very beginner friendly. He takes you through all of them. Of course, they start with Sigmund Freud, ego psychology. Also interesting, he includes Harry Stack Sullivan and interpersonal psychoanalysis in this book. I think not too many people would do that. Usually when people talk about psychoanalytic schools, let's say it this way, they usually talk about the big four, being Freud, ego psychology, object relations theory, and self-psychology. But here you get to learn about Harry Stack Sullivan as well. Then, of course, she can't be missed, Melanie Klein and contemporary Kleinian theory. That would then also include Bion, who is very enigmatic. Then he also covers more of the British object relations school, Fairbairn, who I think is totally underrated. You should definitely, if you have the chance, read some Fairbairn, Winnicott, and then, of course, self-psychology, Heinz Kohlroth. Then he also covers some contemporary thinkers such as Otto Kernberg, also Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan is incredibly difficult to understand, and Stephen Mitchell takes a very good stab at it. And he also dives into some controversies surrounding theory and therapy. I think before you dive into original literature, which I would recommend everyone to do because at least some of them are more accessible than you might think. But before you do that, I think it's a really good idea to start with such a good summary and overview as is Mitchell's, because you can start feeling for yourself what are the ideas that you resonate with, what do you find, what doesn't sit that well with you, where are you drawn to, what do you find difficult. Especially because Mitchell doesn't only cover the theory, he also has case studies in which he applies those theories. So I think this is the perfect second book to read. Once you got a broad understanding of what psychoanalysis as a tradition is, how it came about, and then after you got a broad lay of the land, what theories are out there, what are the different schools about, it's time to start moving a little bit into treatment, because psychoanalysis as a tradition has always been three things. It is a body of knowledge, a form of treatment, that is the most known part of it, and it's also a set of values. And with this third book, we enter into the theory/treatment arena. And for this, the book I chose, obviously, if you have been watching this channel before, or if you have been on my newsletter before, I really recommend signing up if you care about occasional updates on what I read, what I learn. You already know which book I'm going to pull out of here, but if it's new, you definitely need to read this one. This is the best book I've ever read, my favorite book of all times. It is Psychoanalytic Diagnosis by Nancy McWilliams. This is just, like George Macari, this is a complete book. This is a fantastic book. This is a masterpiece. Psychoanalytic Diagnosis sounds incredibly boring, but don't be put off by the title, because already the subtitle, understanding personality structure in the clinical process, this is the good stuff. Nancy McWilliams covers, like, she also gives some introductory lessons when it comes to defense mechanisms, the different schools of psychoanalysis, but not as in depth as what you read before in Freud and Beyond by Mitchell. But this specialty of this book is understanding personality styles. Successful psychodynamic treatment has so many components that it's impossible to name all of them or cover all of them. But I think one important component, especially for psychodynamic treatment, and not everyone would agree with this. Some people tend to work more with inner conflicts, deficits, trauma, and all of that. But I think one of the most interesting things psychodynamic literature has to offer is this concept of personality styles. And Nancy McWilliams just does a fantastic job laying out different personality styles, really explaining not just, because if you read the DSM or the ICD, all you get is externally observable symptoms. But that is not very helpful when you work psychodynamically, because you need to understand what is going on internally, what is going on inside of a person, what are the intricate dynamics of their personality. And to understand that and to understand psychodynamic thinking, there is no better book than Psychoanalytic Diagnosis. It is impossible for me to imagine someone walking away from this book and not feeling absolutely fascinated, discovering parts of yourself everywhere, hopefully also parts of your patients where it can help you to understand cases better and help people better. So this is a 10 out of 10 recommendation. Those 3 books are about 1,200 pages, so they will take you a while. And also, when I was reading Revolution in Mind, I think I took like 16 pages of handwritten notes because it's just so good. Like, this will take you some time. It will take you some time to read all of them, to digest it, to take notes, to understand. You might have to cross-reference and read paragraphs again. But I think if you read those 3 books, you have a fantastic beginner-friendly foundation from which you can then build on. Because I think what you hopefully will find is if you read those books, there will be thinkers, ideas, concepts that will catch your attention. And, you will kind of find what you resonate with. And this is how you can then decide, I thought this was very interesting. Maybe I need to read some more Klein, or I'm really curious about this paper of Freud now that I read this summary from Mitchell. Or now I would really like to understand more about the histrionic personality type. And now, I look up the recommended readings that Nancy McWilliams has, and I'm going to start there. I think this is just a wonderful way to kind of fertilize the soil or see where you are drawn to, and then build your own curriculum from there. Maybe your institute or you for yourself, you already have some literature that you would like to get to, and those books will give you a very solid foundation so that some ideas or concepts will not be that threatening anymore. But also, if you are already licensed and you want to keep reading, it's impossible to walk away from those 3 books without at least one new thinker, one new idea that you can't wait to read more about. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.